They're literally called dead cats. That's not a joke. So all
Just sock on there.
the fuzzy things that they put on mics that you've seen everywhere, always, like they're called dead cats. It's literally
a
their
little
name.
bit.
Okay, we'll check.
It was a lot of fun going to buy.
Well, and I just stuck you, so maybe it's a little higher.
Yeah, you have your fight or flight. Have you had a lot of coffee? Yes. How much?
Yeah, that's probably
A lot.
Yeah. Yep. That's
A lot.
that'll
I
do
just
it.
had a nitro cold brew.
That's my
Okay.
favorite
Yeah,
answer.
Starbucks came out with a coffee can, the nitro cold brew.
Yes,
I'm
those
not-
are good.
it's
Okay,
good.
so do you
That's
feel
good
anything at all?
Yeah, I guess a little bit. You know how to describe
You don't want to
it.
go too fast, but
Yeah, we want to run at about 90 minutes.
So-
so 500 mils.
see how you feel.
Good.
If this is too much, like even the slightest, like that's kind of fast.
I feel it a little. We're good.
Is that worse?
You feel it now? We're not worse.
Do you
but-
want me to like
No,
slow
we're
down?
good. We're good.
Yeah,
Okay.
we want it to be right.
I
at
also, in my past life, did a ton of drugs. So,
Okay.
like this kind of thing.
Well, it won't compare to like.
It is amazing.
It'll be gone immediately when I unhook you or stop it. It's the
Really?
craziest thing.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
It's crazy what.
All right, and then we're gonna do a sidecar bag.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Don't tell the kids that.
For every
Oh. I interviewed a guy
Yeah.
yesterday.
That's how we're starting the video. I don't know.
That's I interviewed a guy yesterday, Doug Bopst
I'm gonna
is
move
his
this.
name, and Doug's been on like the Rich Roll podcast, USA
Yeah.
Do you want some?
Today Show, and all this. He was a guy who was a drug addict, got arrested, went to jail for 90 days, was like super overweight. He got in there and he's like, there's this guy who looked like the bigger version of Brad Pitt from Fight Club. And he goes, you're working out with me starting tomorrow. And he's like, I can't work out. And he's like, what do you mean you can't work out? He's like, do a push-up. He couldn't do one push-up. And so every day he just started working out with this guy. And he got his life together and kicked drugs with no rehab program, no AA, no NA, none of that. And
Just through sheer freaking
Just
the body out with something.
fitness. Just
Yeah.
fitness, yeah.
Just
And he told his dad and brother came to visit him in jail looking through the glass, and his dad's like, hey, we'll pay for your rehab when you get out. And he's like, F rehab, I found fitness. And he's like, no, this is a terrible recipe here. But he did it.
it's gotta be nice.
It's been like 12 years of sobriety, and he's crushing it.
Do you
What's his name?
His name is Doug Bopst.
Yes. Like, I feel like I've heard a podcast with him. Maybe Rogan had him on, or I just feel like I've heard that story.
He's
like,
been on a lot.
I couldn't even do a push-up, but this dude in jail would not let me not do push-ups.
Yes.
He made me do it.
Yes.
He just didn't take my excuses.
Right.
And then
That was
before
it.
I do it, a week later, I'm doing 20, 30 push-ups at a time.
Well, so that wasn't him, because he goes, when I left 90 days later, he goes, I could only do 10 push-ups and run a mile, but that was groundbreaking
Okay.
for me.
So it might be a different person.
Yeah.
But that's,
But still.
yeah, that story
And it
is
lowers
that's
during it.
such
Isn't that weird?
like to go to prison, be at rock bottom,
Yes.
and like
During
you learn
this-
something from
yeah,
a comedy.
right when it
Like
started.
you
Yep.
are a comedy
Yes,
now, but
and he
like,
felt,
So
and it was super cool. He
works
felt
out.
like that was his angel
I have not.
that was sent to him. He's like, I felt like he found faith in prison, and he's like, I feel like this guy was an angel that was sent to me. I was
Yeah,
like,
that's
isn't that?
just
want
a
anything
weird
in
level of
this?
clarity that most people never get to have.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and he got like struck with that, and was like, oh man.
it's crazy. By the way, the whole gut,
Yeah.
the gut feeling thing still like amazes me.
Oh, yeah.
To now know that there's more neurons in your gut
Yeah.
that are firing at any given moment than there are in your brain.
Yes.
And so that like a gut feeling is really your brain. It's still
Yes.
your brain. It's
Well, they're
it's an
finally
actual-
saying now it's like we can't disconnect the body from the brain. The body and the brain are the same thing. You can't just say, well, one's operating the other. They're both
Oh
operating
yeah,
each
your
other.
body's like your subconscious mind. They did like a really cool study where they had people have a sense of fear, right? And they always think that you actually see something and then have a sense of fear. That's not it. There's a low road in your brain that's way faster that the body actually perceives the fear and then you actually see it.
Wow.
So the body is subconscious.
It's sensing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
If you
think
just
about
kind
it.
of
Your
listen.
your old brain back here is doing like 40
Can we just leave it
million
off
bits
for a
of
minute?
information in a second, and your conscious brain is doing like 40. Right?
Yeah.
So in the background, you're taking all kinds of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
It is, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, that's how players on the field can be like, not even turn around and pull it past it, right? Or just know a guy is coming at him, right?
Exactly.
Because they're reading information that's not like
Yes.
visual, right?
Yeah.
It's
And they've learned to listen to that.
Yeah, yeah.
You have to trust that. And then when you don't, that's injuries happen if you're not being aware, if you're too tunnel visioned on things. And I have my job to do, and it's like, well, you got to open your eyes up a little bit here, and otherwise people are going to be falling all over you. And I had that kind of awakening in my third year. I kept getting hurt. It was like ankle injury, knee injury, foot injury, and then all of a sudden my coach goes, you know, there's an art to staying healthy. And I was like, I thought it was just random luck. And he's like, you got to know what's going on around you, man. You can't just go and fight every play like it's the last play. He's like, you got to know when to let go of your block. That's a learning curve too. It's like, oh, I thought you guys said go 110%.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you've been taught your whole
Yeah, it's like go 110%. It's like, no. You got to throttle back, man. You got to pace yourself.
Yeah, it's the marathon season too.
Yeah, you got to know when to go hard and when it's your turn to make a block, or when you're just a guy on the field.
Cool. Let's take a step back and do like kind of a little bit of an intro. I'd like to, properly introduce you.
Not aesthetically.
Not aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah.
I think that might.
Now
be
it's
right.
right in the way.
Literally right.
No,
Sorry.
it's like, we'll do this interview behind the pillow. That's what we'll call the episode. Behind the pillow.
It's not this week.
Yeah.
I was gonna grab
It's a
you.
different demographic.
We never met him before. When we did meet, we decided his face was bad, so we
Sorry.
just put the pillow
Sorry
in
about
front of the
that.
camera.
That's funny.
It's not
Okay.
his fault, but
I'm
we
outta here.
are.
Yeah.
You don't have to be, but all right. So welcome everybody. We're so excited to have a very special guest today. He comes to us from San Diego by way of Indianapolis, and now he is back. So we have Nick Hardwick on the.
Can we wait? Sorry.
Oh, is that picking it up? Okay. Yep. Take two. Ready. This is why we have professionals.
That's it. Yeah.
So you have.
Now I can hear it.
It's okay. I didn't yell at Katie last time we were here. I was recording Melissa. I didn't yell at her while she was in there opening bags. So the tail minute and a half that's really good. What she's saying I can't use because Katie's opening bags and stuff. And it's on me. I should have stopped and been hey, it's noisy. But I just I didn't want to stop her talking, and I should have. But that's what Jared's here for, is to be hey, that sounds bad. Can you
No,
wait?
right here, just awful.
I've got headphones on, and that sounds bad.
How's that sound?
It sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Because this is our first time using it for client work, but
Okay.
everything sounds super podcast.
Should we close that door while she makes those other bags, just to keep it?
So just the idea of she's gonna have to eventually open it.
Okay.
So I mean, I don't know.
Are you picking
It
up
should,
background?
so it should be
noise?
better if she's back there doing it this
Yeah,
time
okay,
with the
'cause
mic
it's
headed this
directional.
way.
Okay.
So we should be fine.
Yeah, especially if you guys are talking
So
All right. So, hey, welcome. We're super excited to have a very special guest today. Our friend Nick Hardwick joins us. He is a longtime native of Indianapolis, spent 11 years in the NFL out in San Diego playing for our beloved Phillip Rivers as his key protector, playing center. And he has really become passionate about diet and nutrition, similarly to us at Feel Good Now. And we're excited to have him here on the podcast. And we are currently hooked up to an IV of NAD+, which is a kind of a new treatment that has some very promising health benefits, particularly around anti-aging, which we can go into. But first, I just wanted to, let Nick tell a little bit about his story, which I think is super cool, and how our paths crossed and how we've kind of been going along on a parallel journey through life. And
Haven't we?
And now we've come back, into this crazy time where we're both in the same town and we're both doing very similar things. And so maybe tell a little bit about your story and kind of where you grew up and, your path.
Cool, yeah. Nick Hardwick, grew up in Indianapolis, Indiana. I was a high school wrestler. I did every sport growing up: baseball, basketball, wrestling, football. But towards high school, I started to whittle myself down. While my size was a limiting factor going into football, I was a small kid. My freshman year, I was 5'4", $125, and I didn't see any playing time my freshman year. So that halted my football career for a while. I didn't realize I was going to pick it back up later. I thought it was completely done. And we had a great wrestling coach at Lawrence North High School where Went to
Remember
school.
Royce Deckard.
Yeah, Indiana High School Hall of Fame wrestling coach, had a great historic program there, had a bunch of older guys that would come back in and mentor us younger guys, and that was kind of the first step along, I think, my health and wellness journey, was learning to wrestle, learning to take care of my body, learning to cut weight, learning to bulk up in the off season. So kind of sizing up, sizing down, and I ended up finishing my wrestling career. We wrestled each other one time, multiple times.
I think once. Yeah, once in the regional championship, I lost. I think 3-2, close one.
Yeah.
And I think the interesting point was you cut 40 pounds.
Yes. Yeah.
40 pounds.
Yeah.
And I cut probably 30 pounds to make 171 my sophomore year, your junior year.
That was my junior year.
Which is just absurd. And do you think that was the key moment when you're like, oh my gosh, diet and nutrition matters in my physique and my performance?
Oh yeah.
Without that in high school, that was
yeah,
when
figuring out how to, because I was always small. I was 125 pounds, and then I wrestled 145 pounds my sophomore year, and then I hit a growth spurt. Puberty took hold,
Undefeated.
and I ended up puberty's undefeated in the athletic game, and I ended up getting up to about 200 my junior year, and then cutting down to 171, cutting all that fluff off, and that was kind of the moment where I realized what the power of nutrition and what you can do through exercise. And then after my junior season, then I ended up getting up to 218 in the off season, which was obviously a lot bigger than what I really anticipated being, but I just kept growing. And I think once I stopped limiting my caloric intake during wrestling season, the puberty kind of kicked back in, because I do think there is a part of looking back at it now and with a little bit more knowledge, I think the caloric restriction during wrestling season was limiting my growth, because obviously the hormones are kind of when everything else isn't taking care of itself or hasn't been taken care of nutritionally, that your hormones aren't going to be in a great place. So I think I was actually limiting my growth earlier than I should have
by cutting weight. So your recommendation to be to parents of wrestlers hold off on the weight cutting until...
I think hold off on the weight cutting, at least in the extreme. So my senior year, I ended up losing 48 pounds to wrestle back at 170
I remember,
pounds.
Dude, you looked very ill. Until the next day after weigh-ins.
yeah, especially Friday. I mean, Friday at the state championships, I weighed at 170 and a half. And then by Saturday morning, I was 185, 190 pounds.
Yeah.
So I immediately put on all that water. I obviously wasn't taking in the necessary amounts of fluid. And
you wrestled under the lights in the finals, right?
In the finals, and I lost.
At MSA, Market Square?
Market Square Arena.
That was the last year that Market Square Arena was there, and then they moved to Bankers Life or Conseco Fieldhouse.
Yeah, it was Conseco.
My senior year. So I was the first class to wrestle at the new facility.
Oh, yeah.
And I wrestled 215. So I hit a growth spurt just like you. So I cut 171 and then was 215. My senior year I cut from 242 to 217, so you got that 2 pound allowance.
That's right.
Friday night I weighed 217.0 on the dot and nailed it. And then the guy I wrestled in the finals weighed 210, a guy named John Goldsberry.
Oh yeah, John.
Who you played with.
That's right.
Purdue.
Yeah, that's right.
So
yeah, he's one of our linebackers.
Yeah, so he weighed 210
from Santa Claus, Indiana.
Yes, Heritage Hills, just a beast. And I weighed the next day 230. So similar, we literally every single week we're cutting 15 pounds of water weight.
Oh yeah.
Every single week, and you would put it right back on, you'd suck it down, and it was just, it gave you that advantage. But man, what an incredibly bad thing for your body.
Probably terrible for your body, but I tell you what, I don't regret a minute of it because of what it did for the mind. And I think the toughness training and being able to maintain discipline and going to bed thirsty and hungry and kind of sitting in bed at night and going, what am I doing? And then going, okay, you can make it another day.
Right. Just
get through the day and you're going to be fine. And so I think while there is a little bit of regret from a body standpoint and what I potentially was doing to myself at the time, from a mental standpoint, I don't regret a bit of that suffering, because I think that suffering to me is where the real juice is at. I'm coaching football back at Lawrence North High School now.
So cool.
And I was touring back through the halls in the old place that I used to be. And one of the greatest memories that I have was like this real visceral moment. I was walking through with the head football coach, and there was a water fountain that I used to during wrestling season go, and I can taste the water still to this day. I can feel it in my mouth. It's because I used to go during wrestling season and not drink the water, but let it just run through my mouth. And it was like the biggest rope of water that you could imagine. It was ice cold. I can hear the machine. And I'm telling you, when I was touring through, they did some remodeling, and I was like, where'd the water fountain go? Like, all I wanted to do was taste that water and actually drink it, because I never got to drink the water during wrestling season. Speaking of water.
I feel bad for you.
But I do think there's a lot of juice in that suffering and that deprivation and that discipline and getting that kind of mindset from wrestling and from cutting weight.
Yeah.
And from at times like recklessly sleeping in a sauna suit in a sleeping bag underneath flannel sheets in my bedroom, which come to find out I was probably way better off being cold than hot, but we didn't know.
Yeah.
Nobody
knew anything.
Nobody knew
Nobody
anything.
knew diet, nutrition. Nobody knew hydration. Nobody knew.
That was my
hormones.
first experience though with the Atkins diet, because the Atkins was hot then. It was like late 90s.
Okay.
And so it was all
like fatty food.
it was just protein and no carbs.
Like
and
paleo, basically.
basically, yeah. Except growing up here in Indiana, it was like we didn't do a whole lot of salads. I mean, there wasn't a lot of greens, so at least paleo's got that kind of thing going for it. So like no fiber basically. So the things we were doing to our body. So to get back on track.
So how did that set you up for the next phase of your journey?
I didn't know it at the time. I don't think, and I think I didn't really have a great plan moving forward, and my goal was to go to college. I ended up getting into Purdue. I had an offer to go to Rutgers to wrestle. I had never visited there. I had never toured. The coach said you can come wrestle like, what was it, 194 or something at the time, and it was 14 hours away. None of my friends were going. I had no idea why I even applied to Rutgers, but I did.
20 pound, at least 25 pounds more of weight cutting for 4 or 5 more years.
Right.
Yeah,
so I just decided to go where my best friend was going, where his brother was. It was an hour up the road. Ended up going to Purdue.
Who was that?
Kevin Kemper.
Oh,
so
yeah.
you wrestled Kevin.
So I wrestled Kemper,
Yeah. So thankfully you got out of my weight class and started messing around with Kevin. And I followed him up there. And I didn't have a great plan, but just in my head, the most successful person in my entire family that I thought at the time was my dad's cousin. So my second cousin was an Air Force pilot, flew F-16s, and he went on to fly for FedEx. So I was like, I'm going to be in the military and I'm going to be a pilot, because that's what my cousin Joe did.
Nice.
And I was like, I'm going to follow in Joe's footsteps because I know he makes a good living. And so that makes sense to me. There was like a clear path. So I joined Naval ROTC because I didn't want to be in the Air Force. He was in the Air Force. So I was an ROTC guy. I kind of walked onto the ROTC program. I showed up like 2 weeks before school started, did all the drills, PT, and then I ended up after my first semester earning a scholarship in the ROTC program.
no
It was
way.
the Marine Corps ROTC program.
So did that affect your football scholarship?
I wasn't playing football.
You weren't
I
playing
didn't play football. I was just a student going
for
to
the
be
first year?
for the first
Semester.
for the first 2 years.
For the first 2 years
Because I didn't
at
play
Purdue,
high-
you didn't play football?
No, because I didn't play high school football.
So how in the heck did you decide midway through your college career that I'm going to play football?
So I'd never been around big time football. You know, Lawrence North historically has had a bad football program. Like
Great
we're the one.
basketball, great wrestling, not that great at football yet.
Yeah, we're the team that would get beat like 77-0. And so I didn't continue playing football after my freshman year. And when I showed up, it was like Drew Brees was there at Purdue, and they were competing for Big Ten championships, and 75,000 people were there. And I was in the stands going crazy with everybody else. And I had a friend in the ROTC program, Frank Avino, came to me, and he was like, dude, we can walk onto the football team. And he brought me the Purdue Exponent in the classified ads. And it's like, for walk-on tryout information, called Blaine Bennett, who was the quarterback's coach at the time. He was like the recruiting coordinator.
No way.
And so Frank did all the work, and he called him. And we had to ask our Major Pfeiffer at the ROTC program if me, Frank, and my other friend David Moore could stop going to PT sessions in the morning at 6 a.m. with the ROTC kids and running 5 to 8 miles and train to get on the football program. And Major Pfeiffer's like, hey, as long as you're doing the work, I'm good with it. Go ahead and try. So we'd wake up every morning at 5, lift weights, run sprints, do our own little combine training. We didn't know what we were doing. And we showed up the day before the walk-on tryouts at Purdue's indoor, and there was a huge meeting. And I thought there was going to be like 20 dudes. There was like 105 kids there because Purdue just went to the Rose Bowl for the first time since 1967. And we had to fill out like a sheet of what position we played, what our accolades in high school were. And I was like, I didn't play football, but I was like, I had been on the internet and seen my size compared to other guys. And I was like, defensive end / linebacker. And I just like turned my sheet in, showed up the next day to walk on tryouts, 105 guys through a whole combine thing. I had a high and tight because I was the Marine Corps, and my shirt tucked in. I had like my Marine Corps ROTC shirt on and my short shorts, and I think it made me stand out a little bit.
You're
like,
I was Forrest Gump.
I was like, well, get that body in here. He'll do anything, man. I think that's probably what they were looking at. They were like, oh,
how big
God.
were you at this point?
I was my size now.
230?
So I was about I weighed in at 229.
Wow.
Yes.
And then, so 105 guys try out. How many people make it?
5 of us made it. 5 guys made it.
Did your buddy make it?
None of my buddies didn't make it.
Shoot, the
My
guy
buddies
who had the idea didn't end up making it.
No, they didn't. They didn't make it. Only 5 of us made it. Only 2 made it through the 6 a.m. workouts, which you know are absolutely brutal.
Oh my gosh.
And
yeah, we
then,
did 5 a.m. They wanted to weed you out. They wanted to see if you had the.
They really wanted you to not sleep.
Yeah.
Which, like, don't we understand now that
that's like torture? I think
it's sleep deprivation. It's like while you're trying to get your body in a physically better position than you are than you were the previous season for the next season. It's like, but we're gonna hit the pause button and we're gonna make you tougher for a month and a half, and we're gonna wreck your body, and we're gonna wreck your grades single-handedly.
Right.
I mean, those things.
Yeah. Did your grades suffer when you were going through?
When I walked onto the team, I went from a 3.9, and it was a steady free fall until I ended up graduating with a 3.08.
Wow.
But it's.
But you did it.
Yeah, I
3-point anything is
but
amazing for an athlete.
Highly bolstered by my first 4 semesters.
Hey,
there.
that's got to start fast for all you high school and college kids.
Start fast.
Your freshman year is critical.
Start fast.
Yeah.
Take a lot of hours early. Put a lot of time in early, and then
that way.
My football career ended up ruining my academic career, but walked on. 2 of us made it. One guy ended up breaking his collarbones twice, so it ended up just being me from that class of walk-ons.
Wow.
And I started as a defensive tackle, spent a year as a defensive tackle, never actually played in a game. And then they moved me to guard. It was naturally...
By the grace of God.
By the grace of God.
Somebody else got hurt.
Somebody was hurt. It was between me and another guy who ended up being a decent defensive tackle, probably could have been an NFL guard if they had moved him, but they chose me instead. And I was reluctant at first because I was about to play, was about to get my moment, and I was probably going to be like the number 2 or number 3 defensive tackle. And they knocked on my door at training camp day 2, and they're like, hey, you're moving to guard tomorrow. And I was like, oh, I'm getting ready to play. Like, that's all I wanted. When I walked on, I was like, put me on special teams, just put me in the costume, let me stand on the sidelines and act like
a part of the fanfare.
Yeah, act like the fans are yelling at me, right?
Yeah. And it's so cool, like the coolest experience ever, running out of the stadium. You got Joe Tiller, who's just a remarkable coach.
Yeah.
Unbelievable players.
That's all I wanted.
Seth Morales.
Yeah.
Who else was on that team?
Oh my gosh, that team had a bunch of different pros on it. We ended up out of my class, my draft class, we had 9 get drafted.
9 drafted.
9 guys get drafted.
Wow.
So University of Miami had 14, Ohio State had 9, we had 9 that year.
Wow.
So we were a pretty stacked up team.
Yeah.
So they moved me to guard, spent a year there. the last regular season game, our center tore his ACL. They moved me to center for the bowl game. I had 2 weeks to get ready for that, and that's when I knew. I was like, that bowl week prep, and then the bowl game itself, we played University of Washington at the Sun Bowl, and immediately I was like, oh, I can do this. Like, I'm good at this. And it just felt like I found my spot. I found my home. I was like, my body's perfect to play center. I'm fast. I can yell. I can coordinate. I can snap. I got quick hands. This is going to work for me. And then I started getting calls.
And you can outwork everybody else on the field because of your experience in the dressing room.
Yes. Yeah,
So,
exactly.
Hard
right.
work and opportunity. They met.
Yeah.
And that led to a wonderful. How many years did you play at Purdue?
I played at Purdue for 3 seasons.
3 seasons. Okay.
Yeah.
So did you redshirt at all or no?
No, by default. Because once you take more than 12 hours and you're a full-time student, that starts counting your clock. So you got 5 years basically
Okay.
to get through once you start full-time.
All
And then I get drafted. I was the first one of the
Did you
Purdue.
do the combine?
I did the combine. I
You
did
did
the
make
Senior
the
Bowl.
combine.
I did the combine, and I was the second center taken with the 66th pick, the 2004 draft.
Wow.
Yeah, so third pick of the 3rd round.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and then 11 years as a starter for the Chargers. I got to be the team captain for 5 years. The last 5, it was just
Unbelievable.
an awesome ride. It was an
Unbelievable.
awesome ride.
So when did you retire and how did you decide that you wanted to get back home?
Yeah, so 2014 was my last season in. So 2004 to 2014, week 1, Monday Night Football. I had a huge stinger going against Calais Campbell. And I had
Jags at the time?
Jags, and now he's with, I think he's with Baltimore.
Just an absolute monster.
He's like Xerxes. He's like 6'8", just arms and strength and pissed off and smart and all the things you don't want a defensive tackle to be.
Yeah,
He is.
Yeah.
And so just my I got a long neck. I think I should probably be like 6'2", but I'm 6'4". So this thing's just out there all the time, right? So I had a bunch of neck issues throughout my career, but they just kind of stacked up. And probably 200 or 300 stingers over the course of my career. I mean,
No
every year it was
kidding.
like try to find a new collar or something to hold my neck in place so it didn't get rattled.
Gosh.
And this year the 2014 season happened to be an exceptionally bad one through training camp for my neck. Like day 1 of practice, it was like huge stinger, and then it just kept happening.
What do you think aging had a
Aging, huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, huge.
So-
Bone spurs, stenosis, bulging disc. I mean, so it started to just have less room to move before that nerve got disrupted and my arm would shut down. So what was happening was my fingers, my last 2, my ring finger, my pinky, were like lobster clawing, and I couldn't screw the cap on a bottle or button my shirt or button my pants. I could snap a ball like a block. It hurt like hell sometimes, but I could get through it. So Monday Night Football, massive stinger, go get an x-ray. Next morning on Tuesday, back in San Diego, get an MRI, show back up at the team facility, and the doctor and the trainer go, hey Nick, good morning. We have to have a very serious conversation. And in my head, I was like, thank God, put me out of my misery. Like, I'm done here.
give me the purple
Yeah,
heart?
because I would have played. If they said, hey, nothing is going to happen, I would have kept going just because, but they're like, we can't let you go back out there. And I was like, oh,
Wow.
thank you for saying that. Thank you. I was like, what a relief. Because at that point, I had the 2 boys, 3 and 1 at the time.
Oh yeah.
And I was just,
You just want to be with them.
yeah, I don't want to forsake the future for the now. You start to get that sense as you get older.
Yeah, I mean,
Right,
look at
it's
some
like-
of these guys that get hurt, permanently. I mean,
Yeah.
you're putting. That's why the game is so fun because there's such a high risk of like
Oh, yeah.
serious. It's like car racing or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
How many of the guys that are in the league for 5-10 years are just obsessed about nutrition, recovery, supplementation, all of that?
I think more now
More now
than when I was playing.
Yeah,
I think-
that Tom Brady is kind of led that charge.
I think Tom
with
Brady,
TB12.
LeBron, I think Drew
Ray
Brees,
Lewis,
Ray.
Dwight Freeney. I know
Yeah,
he's
Dwight
obsessive.
was a maniac. So Dwight came to us at the end of the career,
Oh,
at
that's
the end of his
right, that's
career,
right,
and Dwight was a great teammate. He was hilarious to be around.
Yeah, he's boys with Jordan actually.
He was so funny. He would come into the weight room and he'd have his own like stim machine and he'd plug himself up to these things and we'd all look at him like, "What are you doing? What is that?" And he's like, "Get my muscles firing." And it was like, that is so bizarre. He took his own cooler everywhere. He had like pH water that he had stocked up at the facility. His own cooler. He only ate 3 things during regular season. 3 things: sweet potatoes, asparagus, and bison steak.
No,
that's all he ate for the
entire
season. The entire season.
What?
And he had them. He had it shipped to him. He brought it on the plane to go to road trips. They would prepare it for him.
Talk about obsessive.
Oh yeah.
And he had a remarkable career, right?
He had a great career.
Wow,
yeah.
That's crazy.
But I think guys are starting to understand now that obviously the longer you play, the more money you can make. But if you do a good job taking care of yourself early, that it also extends your career late.
Yes, very much so.
We were I think, the last generation of guys that were doing what we could, but ours was kind of I'm going to impose my will on myself. It doesn't matter what I'm going through. I'll be out there. Tape me up, shoot it up.
Yeah. Yeah, my buddy, one of my good friends, Anthony Fasano, played 11 years, and he said he kept trying to retire. He wanted to retire, but we just kept throwing numbers at him that
it's hard
It's hard to retire if you're a good player and you're a good teammate and you can do what is asked of you.
Yes,
it's extremely valuable to a team. So I mean, it's just
when they can trust you, when they trust what you're doing, that you know what you're doing, that you're going to be there, you're going to lead. And that's how I talk to my kids about that all the time. It's like, there are tangibles to your performance in any job that you end up having, whether it's sports or in any other career. There's tangibles, but there's also all of the intangibles. And so Anthony's kind of pointing to the intangibles, right? It's like, how well do you lead? How well do you communicate? Are you there early? Do you stay late? Are you doing all the little things? Are you making people around you better? Are you lifting performances up?
Yeah.
And if you're doing all those things, then it's very difficult for them to let you go. And that's what Anthony's talking about. I wanted to retire after my 8th season, and they threw another 3-year deal at me, and I can't turn it down. It was too much money.
Right. Yeah.
And it was still fun. And the crazy thing is, and we know this as we're getting older, is time flies.
Man.
It goes way too fast. So when I got in, I was like, 8 years. And when I was thinking about 8 years, because I had a strength coach tell me, he's like, don't stay too long, get what you need out of the game, and then get the hell out before you get hurt. And at the end of 8 years, we had a really awful situation happen. My left guard had a massive concussion, then he had a grand mal seizure on the flight on the way home from New York.
Oh no.
Changed.
Who was that?
Chris Steelman.
Oh yeah, IU guy.
Yeah,
Played
it changed.
Them.
Yeah,
Beast. Was he a tight end?
He was a tight end, a defensive tackle, and then he came to the Chargers as a defensive tackle, and they moved him to guard after they cut him in training camp. They're like, they brought him back 2 weeks later. It was like, you're going to play guard.
Isn't that amazing?
And he was a 4-time Pro Bowler. He would have been a Hall of Famer had he been able to continue going.
Animal, I remember it.
Animal.
Yeah.
Oh, he just played so pissed off. He was so old school.
Yeah,
he was
very
awesome.
much.
I mean,
and you two next to each other.
Yeah,
oh, man.
And you want to talk about like feeling safe at work and in the most violent position. It's like, hey, if you go over the line, I'm gonna set my pit bull loose on you. Yeah, don't piss this guy off. We were playing New England. It was in the playoffs in San Diego. I think it was 06, and they ended up beating us. But we had a quarterback sneak for a first down at the end of the third quarter, and we're changing ends, and Dielman and I I'll talk you through the quarterback sneak. So we're quarterback sneak, and then all of a sudden I'm standing up in the pile. Rivers is down there, and Mike Vrabel, the head coach of the Titans now, has his shoulder buried into my shin, and he's grabbing my ankle, trying to break my ankle. And I'm bopping him on top of the head. I'm like, I don't care if I get a 15-yard penalty. I don't want my ankle broke, right? I don't want him to snap my leg. And he was all over. He was just cranking this thing, and I'm like bopping him on the head. Quarter changes. We're running down to the other end, and Vrabel comes up to apologize to Dielman, who's running next to me. He's like, what the F are you doing to my guy? And Vrabel's like, Chris, I'm so sorry. And then he goes, I thought it was Rivers' arm. And Dealman just lit up, and you should have seen him get so mad. He was like, "We are coming for you." And Brave was like, "Oh God."
Oh wow.
Yeah, but he ran down after us to apologize, not to me, whose leg he was trying to break, but to Dealman.
Vrabel was apologizing to Dealman.
To Dealman, because he was like, "Please don't get pissed off at me."
Oh, because
He's a wrecking ball. The
Yeah.
dude is a wrecking ball. He is an absolute wrecking ball.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That is wild. How are you feeling, by the way? You feel
Feel great.
You can dial that up and down a little bit, but just do it a
Don't-
little bit.
Don't go crazy.
Yeah, because you'll feel it. So I just want you to experience the difference in flow rate. You may I don't know if everybody's sensitivity to supplements
Yeah.
and vitamins is unique.
You can feel it right when you turn it up almost.
Yeah, so it may feel like whoa.
Yeah,
so
where you
if-
get it in your eyes almost. Like,
yeah, like I felt my eyes watering a little bit when we were talking there. But if it feels uncomfortable, you know,
Then dial it back
slow it down a little bit. But this is a timely topic talking about the longevity of NFL players and a remarkable career to play 11 years at center. This NAD is alleged in preliminary studies in animals to have a reversing effect in the aging process. There's no human clinicals yet, but
Right.
allegedly, or it may, we can't speak in absolutes, right, because of FDA, but it has shown some lengthening of telomeres, which is like the ends of your DNA. And so if this proves out to be true, could be a very, very popular treatment.
Yeah.
So, and we've just started doing it a few months ago, post-COVID, and it's become wildly popular, and a lot of people are doing it on the coast and such. And it's not anything that your body doesn't naturally produce,
Right.
but it is a molecule that is a byproduct of the Krebs cycle,
Yeah.
which is the conversion of food to energy, which creates ATP, which is basically cellular energy.
Yes.
And so we're taking and extracting this NAD to kind of flood the bloodstream with this positively charged proton molecule, which goes and scouts out for free radicals and electrons, and so you feel this kind of almost like a positive charge.
Oh, yeah, you
throughout.
can
Do
feel charged, yeah.
throughout the whole body,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
So we're really kind of testing the waters on biochemistry and biomolecular interaction and such.
It's
so
awesome.
It's kind of a funky thing, but
Yeah.
I'm so glad you were willing to try it. We're gonna also piggyback on some essential amino acids, vitamins, high dose vitamin C, magnesium, calcium, B complex, and so we'll Katie's in there making the bag currently, but we'll see how that interaction makes you feel too. And
Do you notice a difference when
I
you have
do.
that in there?
I noticed a difference post IV. I don't know. Do you do any Fitbit or Whoop or Garmin?
I was doing them. I stopped. I got too neurotic with it. I was like, I'm not going to let this score dictate the rest of my day.
You're right.
I was like,
So-
it's crazy.
It's-
Like the data, you just get maniacal about
Yeah,
it.
you and I can imagine you being as intense as you are. You could
I was
get
like-
fanatical about
I
it.
was like, screw off. My HRV's got to be higher than that.
So you do
I would
the
just,
Whoop?
I would get so mad at it. I was like, come on. I was like, that's not true. I slept incredibly well last night.
Right. So sometimes it's like, man, what's going on? Is this accurate? But I do notice when I get an IV, my recovery is almost always in the green. And I don't
Wow.
know if it's because of the increased blood volume, just through the increased fluids
Sure.
into the bloodstream direct, which I think in of itself, if you just got a bag of saline solution, that you would have a beneficial feeling just
yeah.
because of the increased blood volume.
Yeah.
Which in our research, I'm finding that how people die is called ischemia, where they basically don't have enough circulation and blood flow to the cells.
Oh.
And so that is like one of the main causes of death. And I'm like, if you can increase the circulation and the blood flow to the cells,
Yeah.
which is what exercise does.
That's right.
And that's why exercise is so critical to cardiovascular health.
Wildly important
And so
for all health.
literally, people that work out every day and are consistent about it, they literally look younger than those who don't. And that's
Yes.
why they say that, living a sedentary lifestyle is sometimes even, or potentially even more risky than smoking. Have you heard that?
Yes.
So the concept of IV therapy came to me through another friend that was in the NFL, Anthony Fasano. We were hanging out at Live in Miami after he signed a three-year deal, his second contract, and as you know, those are good deals.
That's a good one, yeah.
The second contract's a good contract. So he was like, hey, we probably overindulged, and he was saying, I'm gonna go to
As you do, yeah.
So he goes, I'm gonna go to the training room and get an IV. I'll catch up with you. And so he was using it for a different purpose than what you were getting him
Right.
during the games. But I was like, this was 2009, and there weren't any commercially available IV clinics yet. The first one came out in 2011. I was like, hey, why can't you just go get an IV of fluids and vitamins and to make yourself feel good whenever you want? And nobody really had a good answer for that. And so I was like, I'm gonna see if I can make this a thing. And so I started off in 09. I had about 50 grand to my name. Was not fortunate enough to make it in the NFL.
You didn't get that second contract.
No, I did not. I didn't get the first one either. So I was like, hey, I'm gonna try and figure out a way to, help people and make people feel better.
Cool.
I think that would be a good long-term business. Little did I know how complicated IV therapy is, and it's kind of a confluence of health, medical, wellness, and
Yes.
nutrition.
A lot of regulations.
A lot of regulations, a lot of legalities.
Yep.
So just figuring all that out was very time-consuming and tedious. Ran out of money during that time. Got married, had a baby. My wife, oddly enough, wanted me to have a job. So, ended up had a degree in finance and kind of fell back on that and built a financial services practice, and then had an opportunity to re-engage the business once I had a little bit more financial cushion.
Yes.
And now here we are. We're 3 years in, and had our best month ever in September.
Awesome.
Previous month before that was our best month ever, and so now in this NAD treatment has really become super popular. And we're not, our social media and content experts are doing a wonderful job, but there are other people that are finding us, and they're doing the research about NAD, and they like the promise that it has, even though there's not human clinicals that have double-blind placebo-controlled studies that say with certainty that this does help the aging process.
Right.
The mere hope that it does
Yes.
is attractive enough for people to want to come in and try it. So
And I think there's something too for when you experience it and when you're sitting here feeling how we feel, you do know that something's happening.
yeah,
It's not just, I'm not just getting a sailing back,
right.
that
right.
there is something, effect taking place in the body.
Yeah,
And it's a
and
pretty good feeling.
isn't it weird?
It's a really good feeling. So I can imagine too, from a patient's perspective, wanting to experience this again.
yeah,
Right, so you're talking about the blood volume, and one thing that I'm learning, 39 now, 11 years in the league, I rode my body hard and put it away wet, right? It's like I ran this thing ragged. I can't any longer work out the way that I would want to work out. I have to modify a lot of workouts. I have to be very smart with the way that I do it.
yeah.
I can't go do a bunch of maniac
That's not
bodybuilding
true, dude.
workouts.
I've seen your workouts online.
But I have really honed them down to low impact.
If you haven't checked his workouts out, they are excellent, and they're for somebody that doesn't want to beat the body up but still get a crazy good workout.
Yeah, because you have to work out, right? For me, you have to work out. I think part of staying young and staying vibrant, my most important goal in all that I'm doing really is taking care of my brain. So my main concern is not my knees or my feet or my hips, shoulders, neck. It's not that. It's my brain. And it's the damage that I did through 30,000 head hits
Oh my
in
gosh.
college football and pro football. And you factor in all of spring ball, you factor in training camp, you factor in regular season games, you factor in regular season practices. Over a 15-year football run, it was about 30,000 head hits because the center cannot escape
Right.
contact.
And it's not
Wouldn't want to.
It's not the 20-30 G-force that the Austin Collie and the receivers
Right.
in the middle are getting, but it's a consistent
It's a jab.
G-force every
Every play is
play.
a jab. Every single play is a jab. So for me, my primary objective in one, losing weight when I was done, and maintaining a healthy body weight and exercising regularly is to restore and maintain neurocognitive function.
Oh my gosh, I love
That's
this
it.
topic. Didn't you do a CTE study when concussion came out? Or I don't know if it when it was, but I remember following you and I saw something that you did this like crazy in-depth brain scan, and I was like, I would love to do that to
Yes.
see. And I didn't play nearly as much as you did, but
Yeah.
tell me about that experience.
So first when concussion came out, I went to see it with my wife, our friends, and he was also a football player. But in concussion, they're talking about Mike Webster plays obviously the center position. They were like, it's the most violent position in all of sports. So I'm sitting there watching this movie going, oh my God, like what am I doing to myself? And then it was almost like this real somber feeling leaving. And I signed up to be on a panel a month or two later where we were going to view concussion as a crowd and an audience, people who paid money to come to this event. And it was me, a former Navy SEAL, and a neuroscientist. And we were going to all watch it together, and then I was going to sit on a panel. Well, after we got done watching the movie, we take a small bathroom break, go get drinks out in the lobby, and then we're coming back in. And as I'm walking to the restroom, I can't tell you how many people were patting me on the back like, I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. And I was like, I haven't died. Like, I don't feel like Mike Webster looked in that movie or the way that he was portrayed. I was
Oh my
like, calm
gosh.
down. But it is like this big awakening moment to go, okay, that is potential. That could potentially be you if you don't do everything right. So in my head, it's, you did the crime, now you have to do the time. So I have to go above and beyond what a regular person has to do to maintain neurocognitive function. I have to stay highly engaged. I have to work on my relationships. I have to do spirituality. I have to take care of my finances. I have to exercise in abundance. I have to eat really clean, because all of those things go to mental health. They go to brain health.
Wow.
And so it's that for me is like kind of the quest that I'm on, is making sure that when I'm 85, or I've said my goal is to live to be 100 years old. When I'm 100, I want to be strong mentally. I want to be able to engage with my kids and my grandkids, and I'll have great grandkids by then. I mean, if I live to be 100 years old, my kids are going to be in their 70s. How cool would that be to see your grown kids live to be 70?
Wow.
So-
How long did your parents live? Or are they
They're still alive.
Okay.
Yeah, my mom's 75. My dad just turned 67.
Okay.
67.
All right.
Yeah.
Yes, about the same. My parents are 75 as well.
Yeah, so still trucking, still doing their thing.
How about grandparents? Do you have longevity on your side, or would you say
No.
on average
No,
84 or whatever that?
my grandma is still living, and she is remarkably tough. She's
Shocker.
in her 90s. She is so stubborn. She's had, in 1987, she had a quadruple bypass. They gave her like 7-8 years to live. 87. And so she's outlived that by 33 years already.
Oh wow, that's
Which is-
promising. My mom just had that quadruple bypass
Oh.
2 years ago.
No kidding.
Yeah, so that's very, very promising.
Yeah.
So, let's talk about the concussion study and how that affects you as a parent. Now you got 2 young boys,
Yes.
8 and 6.
8 and 6, yeah.
Hudson and Teddy.
Yeah.
I have a Hudson, so it's super cool. What are your viewpoints going through and beating up your body on? Should they play tackle football? Should they do flag?
Yeah.
What's your?
Well, let me tell you first about this study. It was super cool. So my friend, who was a Navy SEAL, Pat Dossett, he runs a company called Made For now with a guy named Blake Mykowski who runs Tom's, and it's a super cool habit kind of transformation company. Pat turned me on to, it's called the Brain Treatment Center, and it's in San Diego, and they treat a lot of former Navy SEALs with TBI. And what they did,
What's TBI for?
traumatic brain injury.
Okay.
So what they do is you go in and immediately they hook you up to an EEG. So they're scanning your brain waves, and they get a map essentially of your brain waves and your patterns, and they can do it in a color-coded picture, so it's very visual, and you can see it, and you can see where it's like a heartbeat, where it's got all the familiar patterns. It should fire in sequence, and if it doesn't, they can tell you where and why, and then they hook you up to, over a 6-week period. I went 5 days a week for about 30 minutes, and it's called magnetic e-resonance therapy.
Yeah.
And so basically you sit in a chair just like this, and they put a magnet on your frontal lobe, and they align it to where it needs to be, and then they shoot pulses of electromagnetic energy into your brain, and it feels like electric stim, like if you've ever had e-stim. It feels like that on your brain, so your brain kind of twitches a little bit. But it's in these 8-second intervals, so it's like for 8 seconds, and then it kind of goes away. And the goal is to assemble and then to align your neurons, and so they fire in a real cohesive manner, and they look more like a regular brainwave. So when we first looked at my EEG, I was a little out of sync from front to back and from left to right, which that's what they're trying to do, is align your brain waves and make it smooth and fire. And everyone's got their own kind of sense of normal with their pattern, and we weren't sure if what I ended up getting to through the treatment, my sense of normal was reduced through all the head hits, or if I came in like that. But we found out that I'm a high theta wave producer, which means I'm very calm. Like theta wave is what you get into when you're
Clearly, while he was getting stuck.
yeah. Theta wave is like what you get into when you're in a meditative state. So they would ask me after I get done with an EEG, they were like, were you awake? And I was like, yeah, I was wide awake. And they're like, okay, so maybe, and we don't know. It's like, maybe that's how I came into the world. We just don't have the information on that. Or maybe my brain was kind of beat into that through all the head hits that I sustained. So basically what we were doing was trying to excite me again and trying to align me again. But I tell you, the one thing that it did do was I went because I was having a hard time. I was on Sports Talk Radio. I was having a hard time starting a thought and then taking a divergent path on that thought, but then coming back eventually full circle to the original and wrapping that up. And I was having a hard time with that. So I called my buddies, like, tell me what that thing was again. Brain Treatment Center. So after that, after the 6 weeks, I felt like in full alignment. I felt full powered, and it was super amazing. But the one thing that did stick out to me when they did the neural mapping was my right side, my front temporal lobe here, was super red. And that's because as a center, you snap the ball with your right hand and you can't protect yourself. So your head becomes your de facto hand until you can get your hand into the combat.
Right.
Because the nose guard's 360 pounds and just bearing down on your brain. Everything else was pretty good except the correlated side on the back left. So it's like a car wreck, right? You get here and it shakes into the back left.
It's wild.
So it's crazy.
Fascinating.
So back to the kid thought, I like to look at things in terms of net positive and net negative. My life has been so transformed by football that overwhelmingly I can say that it's a major net positive and has not been a net negative. And further, I feel cognitively at a place now, this is my 6th season out of the NFL, I feel at a place now where I am stronger mentally at 39 than I was at 29. That I'm healthier, I don't have bad days, that my thoughts are where they need to be, that I just feel in really good alignment, really peaceful with myself and my place in the world. And so I did go through a phase, I have to admit, where when I got out of the league and I was confused on like my purpose and my identity and
Yeah, that's
direction.
a thing, right? That's a real thing.
it's a major thing, and I think that's one of the biggest kind of when we're thinking about CTE. I think what happens, yes, damage does happen. I think about my knees, my ankles, my hips, and the arthritis that's in there. The brain, I'm sure, feels or looks similar to that. And I think that's what CTE is. Like in my layman's terms, CTE is brain rest. And motion is lotion for arthritis.
Mm-hmm.
So for me to stay active, to stay engaged, to keep pumping fresh blood and oxygen to it.
Motion is lotion.
Motion is lotion.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, so
Was there any protein or CTE that was visible in the scan?
So I went to Johns Hopkins and I participated in a brain study there.
Yeah.
And it was one where they put radiation into you. So it was nuclear medicine. And
Right.
I
They do the dye.
I did a whole CT scan. So that was a completely different beast.
They put like a colored dye into your bloodstream, and so they can see the
Yeah.
I
And
got
that was wild. I can't get the results from that
it. Why?
because it's a study that's happening. So they
Can you
can't,
get the end results of the study?
when they're published.
Okay.
But as a participant, I can't legally get my own results from the study.
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
So,
like to have those.
so back to the kids. One, I did go through a period where trying to sort it all out, like sort my life out after football, find a new passion, find a new decision-making corridor. Like what's going to make me happy? How do my wife and I settle into this new experience that we're getting ready to have? All of that. I did go through a period where I'm like, I would never let them do what I did. But once I found myself and found my identity, I realized that it's not my brain, it's my purpose that I needed. And so when I look back at my career and all the great times that I had and the lessons that I learned, and I think that's the beautiful thing about sports, and I think football in particular, is there's only so many games a season, and they're also incredibly important. And so the wavelength of life during football season is so high and so low. It's like, boom, you just get these massive highs with a big win or massive lows with a devastating loss, or you're the hero of this game and the next game, my God, if you didn't do the dumbest thing that cost your team the game, right? So you get all of these life experiences in such a short window that I always felt like every season was 5 years of life. And I would hate to rob them of that opportunity, the learning opportunities that I had by playing football. So many messages came to me, so many life lessons came to me while playing football that I wouldn't be even close to the person that I am today without having played football.
Amazing. Yeah. Despite the concussion movie and despite all the the risks of injury and I agree, man. I totally am with you in that camp and all the life lessons, the social aspect, the playing for something greater than yourself and playing, sacrificing for your team, like that aspect in life comes.
I mean, how about this? Think about the movement that we're in now and the social justice movement. I think a lot of white males cannot relate because they haven't been in a locker room and fought alongside a black male or Hispanic male or somebody from Russia, right? It's like, but you come into that locker room and you're just a brother. Like your skin color doesn't matter. I don't see any difference between me and you. The only thing I see on the football field is if you're willing to lay your body on the line for me.
Yeah, can I trust you?
Do you care as much as me?
Yeah.
If things hit the fan, if stuff hits the fan, and I'm caught in a compromised position, are you going to come clean this dude up for me? And it doesn't matter what your color is. It doesn't matter what his color is.
Right.
We're on this same team and we have this same jersey. Are you there for me or not?
Yeah.
And that's real love, right? And that's one concept that's really hard for me to grasp right now is like people are trying to tell us we want to see differences in human beings. And I'm like, that is so ass backwards to me. We're trying to see differences now in one another. We're all humans. Why don't we try to find the 99.99% that we're all the same and get on a team together? Let's try to figure that out. And that's one of the great life lessons in football is that humans are humans.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter where you're from. We can all get around to calls and we can all love one another as long as we have the same goal in mind.
Amen. I think the biggest or the best policy decision of the COVID season is whoever decided that we're going to play football.
Oh,
I mean, it's unifying.
Yes.
Fan perspective. I mean, it's something that
think about this. So I'm coaching at Lawrence North High School, and it's not the most affluent area. And there's a lot, and this is another beautiful thing about football for me. A lot of times it brings together inner city kids and country kids that would otherwise have zero interaction. And now we're on the same team, and now we're fighting for the same thing. But in the city, at Lawrence North and at other schools like this that are now getting to play football, they have a place to be every day. They have something and somebody and a coach and teammates that are holding them accountable for their actions. So you can't just go home and mess off and not do your schoolwork. Because if you don't do your schoolwork, you don't get to play.
Right.
If you don't lift weights, you're not going to play. If you miss practice, you're not going to play. So there's a huge accountability. For me, the mental health component, if some of these seniors weren't going to get their season and were going to have to live the rest of their life going, I don't know, maybe I had a chance at the next level. I didn't get to experience it, right? Because I hit puberty late and I grew late and now was my time to shine and I didn't get that moment. And I just think there's so much come togetherness from football that I'm just thrilled that we're back.
Amen.
Yeah.
Did you watch the game last night?
Yeah.
That was awesome.
That was awesome.
I wouldn't want to be blocking Chris Jones.
Oh, the guy's a monster.
Oh, man.
He's a monster.
He's got the Calais King
God.
rule.
He does, yeah. He's
that.
long, he's strong, he's got moves. I mean,
Smart.
yeah.
So,
You can't work your way into that position. You're kind of gifted that one.
So, I don't know if we're going to... Katie, do you want to hook him up to the performance athlete?
When he's done.
Okay. I sucked mine down. I went a little bit faster than you.
Oh, you're crushing.
You could probably, to the point of comfort, speed it up a little
You
bit.
only got a little bit left anyways.
So maybe you guys, everybody, do we need to take a break or use in this since the late 1960s in IV form to significantly lessen the withdrawal from a variety of substances. The mechanism is not clear. The recovery tends not to be complete with IV NAD alone. With the addition of a specified amino acid complex, recovery is found to be significantly more profound, complete, and lasting, which is what we're doing right now. We're following it up with an essential amino acid blend called Freeamine, which is used for parental nutrition in hospitals and stuff, but it has leucine and arginine and all the amino acids that are not that you have to derive from food. So one of the when you were talking, it showed, and I don't know if our viewers can see this or not, but just a picture of the colorful brainwave state. Is this what you saw?
No, that's the Amen Clinic. That's Dr. Daniel Amen.
Okay.
Yeah, so this
is different?
That's a different one, yeah.
Okay, but it shows you the difference in the electromagnetic field.
I want to get one of those.
Yeah, I want to get one with you.
Yeah.
So maybe
He's good. I've had him on my podcast.
You have?
Yes, and I've had a couple of other doctors from the Amen clinics that have joined that are really.
We feel so blessed and fortunate to have you on. This guy, he's had, some of the biggest, names in sports and neuroscience and health and wellness. I mean, you have been fortunate enough to have some really, really awesome.
I describe it like Humpty Dumpty fell off the wall and now he's requiring all the king's horses and all the king's men to put it back together again. So it's a selfish quest and one that I'm happy to share with everybody else that's listening. It's funny. It's like 39 years old, but I probably physically relate more to 50 plus year olds.
Same.
But people start to feel, I think at about 35, you start to feel your age.
Oh.
And that's maybe the first time, if you haven't done anything stupid like we did, like you start to feel it. And then by 55, you better have been on some sort of health path. Otherwise, I don't want to say it's too late. I don't want to like rob anybody of their hope. And game, you better get moving.
Yeah.
You better get going now. It's never too late to start, but I would start sooner rather than later.
Man, I wish everybody could hear that message.
I know.
It's never too late to reverse the process.
Yes.
Even if it's been 20 to 25 years of damage to the body, your body is resilient. And I'm so glad to hear you say that as somebody that has been there and done that and has the highest level of understanding of how it all works.
Yeah. Just innately, like I feel it. Right? So, like to a scientific level, do I understand? No. But when I wake up on a daily basis and I feel good and I can continue to move forward after knowing all that I've put my body through, that to me is evidence enough that I'm on the right path. Right? That everything that I'm doing on a daily basis is justified because I'm feeling good and my brain's firing.
How important is it or when did you realize, and maybe this was in your late 20s or maybe it was later, but at what point did you realize that it's all connected? Mind, body, spirit, your beliefs, your physique, and your intent. That it's all
connected. I think that's still an evolution. I think it's funny, like we just recently moved back to Indiana from San Diego. We were out there for 16 years.
Tell us about that experience.
Yeah.
And now you have Sirianni here, Phillip Rivers.
Yeah.
Tell us
I
about
did
that.
not move here for Phillip Rivers, although I do love to be close to him. And people are like, man, what a psycho. He moved to Indiana to be closer to Phil, which it was funny because
you moved before he
I moved before he did. I took him out to breakfast before both of us ended up getting out of San Diego. And I said, hey, we're thinking about leaving. And he goes, funny you mentioned that. We're moving Tuesday. And they were moving from San Diego. They were selling their house, packing up. He's like, we're boxing everything up over the weekend and we're getting out of here on Tuesday and we're going down to our place in Florida. And we're just going to see what happens. And maybe the Chargers bring us back. And then if they do, then we'll just rent a place up in LA. And if they don't, we'll go somewhere else. And he was like, Tampa's available, Indy's available, Carolina's available. And we'll see where we go. And I was like, well, we're moving back to Indy. And when he was looking, when he found out he was a Colt, I would go check out some houses for him, like drive by and video.
So do you guys live close?
We live close, yeah. We're like
same neighborhood.
Like 3 miles. We're 3 miles away. So it's funny because during football season I don't see him.
Right.
But it's
you don't see anybody on the football team because they're all working their ass off. Right?
Yes. Yeah. They got enough on their plate. They don't have a whole lot of time for socialization. So, and he's got a big family that he's got to give.
Oh my gosh.
All of his time to.
9 kids.
9 kids. Ooh, yeah. He's an animal. He's just remarkable. So we ended up deciding to come back to be closer to family. So my mom's 75, has some underlying health issues. Dad beat throat cancer 4 years ago, 67. And so it's just, for us, it was like, we're either going to move back now while the kids are in 3rd and 1st grade, or we're not going to do it. And we're going to be kind of in the path or on the path that we're on and not want to rip the kids out by middle school or high school or whatever.
So interesting.
So the decision was to move now. And I know a lot of people are leaving California now. For us, it was to get closer to family. And then also as a benefit of that, you get twice the house for half the price. Property taxes are lower and you're paying less or on a less cost of a house.
Yeah.
You save 10% from California and Indiana on state income tax alone. If gas price is any indication, you're paying like $1.50 less per gallon. That's just in general cost of living, everything. It's cheaper to do business here. It's cheaper to live your life here. Groceries are cheaper. Gas is cheaper. Everything's cheaper. And people are super nice. And I feel like we live in this, our boys are really athletic. We love sports, and we live in this place where access to youth athletics is just incredible.
Yeah, you have the biggest sports complex in the country, like a mile from your house.
A mile from the house.
Yeah.
It's just incredible. It's 400 acres, and there's something going on there every single day. So it's just.
Michigan and Ohio and Illinois sports teams are flocking here because they're closed. It's like there's no pandemic in Indiana. It's actually nice.
Yeah, it's super nice. So yeah, it's been awesome being back here and reconnecting with family and all that.
We're so fortunate to have you back. I feel blessed and fortunate to have you to be able to share your story with us here
Awesome.
today. And we're it's exciting. I mean, the Colts are freaking awesome. You got tell us about Sirianni and Philip Rivers and their connection, because that had to play a factor in the recruitment of Philip and the signing of him.
And Frank, right?
And Frank, right?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Also, yeah, because he coached us out in San Diego, and I always knew Frank
Was he OC?
He was, yes, quarterbacks coach, offensive coordinator, and I always knew Frank was meant to be a head coach. Just his demeanor, how stoic he is, and kind of the calmness that he gives in really high pressure situations. A lot of theta waves in that guy, yeah. Yeah, but a really solid dude with great values and principles, and I could always tell he was just a head coach in waiting. And so he's doing a wonderful job. Sirianni's so fired up and incredibly smart and creative. And
I got to hang out with him once. He's a cool guy. He and his wife are both really awesome.
He's a really good guy, yeah. And then Philip's just, I'm really happy he gets to experience something different in the NFL. Because it was really difficult when the Chargers, announced that they were leaving San Diego, or were trying to leave to go up to Carson to be with the Raiders in a stadium that got smashed by the Rams proposal. And once that all kind of happened, the fan base in San Diego disintegrated. And so for 5 years before Philip came here, he didn't really have a home field advantage ever. And can you imagine being a quarterback and not having home field advantage, or walking into a stadium
with no fans
8 times a year and having limited fans, and then being overwhelmed or booed in your own place, or having to go silent count for 5 straight years, silent count at home for 5 straight years.
Wow,
like, how are
no
you
kidding?
Yeah.
You guys had to do silent count?
Silent count at home.
That's a
I mean, what a slap in the face.
I'll tell you, Notre Dame played Georgia last year or 2 years ago, and there was this hurricane that was coming through Atlanta, and the Cubs were playing the Braves, Notre Dame was playing Georgia, and then the Bears were playing the Falcons, all in the same weekend. And so every single person from Georgia was like, I'm leaving the hurricane and I'm going to go see all my favorite sports teams in the same weekend. And there were more Georgia fans at the Notre Dame game, and it absolutely played a role in a 3rd and long critical game situation. It was so loud, we had to go silent count, and the DN strip sacked us, and all we had to do was go down and kick a field goal, and it was strip sack. We lost the game. And I totally equate it to the crowd noise playing a factor.
Yeah, there's just something too about having somebody to fight for other than you, like a greater cause, right? So when we were cranking in San Diego, we had the 4th most wins over a decade in the whole NFL. We had a really good football team. We also at that time had a really good fan base. That when we came in, it was crazy. It was like the best party in the whole country. It's like 75,000. It was like a total fiesta. I mean, it was like part football, part party. It was part of the reason that it was so hard to get a stadium built in San Diego, is because they wanted to do it outside of we had the 2nd largest parking lot. It's 166 acres. It's like the 2nd largest parking lot west of the Mississippi. So this parking lot was like the home of one of the greatest tailgates ever. People weren't willing to build a stadium because they didn't want to not have their tailgate ability. So it just really lended itself to just this wonderful, crazy atmosphere in the stadium. And that helps you win. Like
totally.
It just helps your brain, the momentum it builds, and you can just ride those waves.
And you were the captain of that entire party.
Oh God, it was awesome. God, it was awesome. It was awesome. It was so awesome.
Man, what years were you captain of the Chargers?
09, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. No, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
That's so cool.
So after LT left for the Jets in 2010, and then I took over and became the captain then.
Wow.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the Colts? Have you readopted the Colts? Are you still?
We're cheering for them.
Okay.
Yeah, we're cheering for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, my wife wore a Colts t-shirt out the other day, and I pulled into the bathroom when we were about to go out, and I was like, whoa, that takes some getting used to. And she's like, I'm a huge fan of Philip.
Talk about your wife. She's very into health and fitness.
She's awesome. I mean, she's kind of the driving force behind all of it. So she's very smart. She doesn't put her stuff out there near as much as I do, but she is the home base. I mean, she's everything. She drives the health in the house. She actually has way more knowledge than I do.
Where did you guys connect?
So at Purdue, she was a soccer player. And so she's a really good athlete, very smart.
Not from here. She's from
Toronto.
Toronto, yeah. Very cool.
So in Canada, there's only like one school that offers athletic scholarships, and I think it's on the West Coast.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And so she knew all along she was going to come to the United States to play soccer in college. That was just her dream. So she went to Purdue, and really good soccer player, but just an unbelievable mom. And
yeah,
for us,
awesome.
she's
Jamie, right?
Jamie, yeah.
She's awesome.
She just brings an incredible amount of love to the house and knowledge, and women have this way about them. They're just so patient.
Yeah.
And I'm really thankful for that. She's taught me what she does way better than me has great balance in her life. And she actually is like, I'm really thankful for this. She longs for nothing. And she doesn't desire material goods. Like, money's not really a thing for her. The house that we live in, it's nice, but it's not over the top, and it doesn't have to be the best. And she doesn't need the best car. And she shops at Marshalls and TJ Maxx, and she loves finding a good deal.
Oh, man. That sounds like my wife.
Yeah.
It's that's cool to, and we could all do a better job of, being happy with what we have, right?
Yes.
And that plays a factor into your overall health and wellness, and your
That's a crazy thing. It's such a funny world, right? Like, we compare ourselves to everybody else, but if you just compare yourself to where you came from, you're going to be a lot happier.
Yeah.
Because God, the strides that I've made since I was a kid, I mean, it's an amazing. We've all come a remarkable amount of way, a remarkable distance, but we get in this world where we just compare ourselves to everybody else, and they've got that, and they've got a bigger house, and they drive a better car, and they make more money, but it's like, but look what we have, look at our home. And so back to like the spirituality thing, we hit on it a little earlier. When we moved back to Indiana, it was like something hit me, and just kind of the evolution of how everything's fitting together, the mind, the body, the spirit, the gratitude. Like, when we came back here, I just felt so at peace again. And there's a part of me that wakes up every morning that just, like, I look outside and I just kind of put my palms to the sky and I'm like, why me? Like, thanks for, and I was never religious or that spiritual for that matter, but there was something coming back here and like living the life that we have and being really settled and just feeling so at peace that I look to the sky all the time and I'm like, thank you, because who else am I going to thank? I can thank my hard work and my effort and grinding, and I can sell myself a totally bull crap story. And yes, I have worked hard and I've done my best to put myself in good situations, but holy hell, there's been a lot of luck along the way, right? Like, there's been a guy that got hurt at the right time and gave me the opportunity. And when I thought I was out of a job, another guy ended up getting hurt and gave me another opportunity. And, there's so many things that came that were just, like you said, by the grace of God. And when you can finally admit that and say, yeah, I put a lot of work in, but it's also for the grace of God. And then you can just go, thank you for this. And every day, just thank you for this. And so we come back here and I just feel so fortunate. And so we started this thing with my kids. Every night before I put them to bed, I started praying. I didn't even know where it came from. I just like, I have to pray, I have to thank somebody for this, because it's like, this is too good. It just feels too good. And so we started doing this thing at night. It's like, I go to the boys' room and they tell me 3 things they're grateful for and 1 thing they're going to work on tomorrow. It's like, how are you going to get better tomorrow? What are you going to work on? And then what are you grateful for? And so let's read. It's like a miniature gratitude journal, except they're not writing because kids, it'll take forever.
It's so funny. We do the same exact thing.
Do you?
It's we say what we're thankful for, one thing we want God's help with, and then we try to pray for somebody else.
Oh, that's great. I'll have to put that
so-
one in there. We always pray for
But
those sick and less fortunate than us,
there you go. So
and for a way to impact the world.
that is so
How can
crazy.
we help us make the world a better place?
So crazy that you do the same thing, and it's you almost have to because kids are so inherently selfish,
Yeah,
and it's so hard to get them to.
they do. They get their blinders on, don't they?
Yeah,
And their little world and their little problems, and we all do it in our own way. It's so funny having kids because you see childlike behaviors in adults all the time, and then it's funny to see childlike behaviors in yourself at times.
Yeah.
And then
Well, you are a big kid at heart. I can tell.
I am a big kid, but it's fun to admit when you're having those. It's hard to admit when you're having a childlike moment, like you have an argument with your wife, and all of a sudden you're
throw a
like,
fit.
I'm sorry. Can we start over? That sucked. I sucked.
The ability to do that
Yeah.
though is one of the hardest parts of a marriage. I think.
Oh my
is to-
gosh.
I got to hear some, through football allowed me to get to hear Dr. Kevin Elko and just wonderful speakers who coached the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Alabama football team. And one of the biggest takeaways I hear from him is like, before I walk in the house every night, is let go of my need to be right. And
Yes.
this is my spouse. I need to let go of my need to be right, and that doing that and being
Wow.
able to
Yeah.
say that you're sorry is so critical to relationship success. And there's just I've learned so much today just from you and reiterating all this. So I hope all of our viewers got to enjoy the same benefit and content. There's so much to be unpacked through all of your life experiences and what you've learned that I think everybody can benefit from. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. No,
Yeah.
thank you. Seriously.
for having
And
me.
how are you feeling, by the way?
This is great. Yeah.
How is the difference in the amino acid and high dose vitamin blend? Has it kind of the electrified feeling
Yes.
kind of went away?
It shifted down a
Yeah,
different
you-
gear. But I feel the NAD was almost like you're almost intoxicated. Right? You almost feel a sense of like,
Whoa.
yeah, this is a lot. Because you're pulsing.
Yeah.
It's
It's so, isn't it amazing because there's so much electricity flowing through
Yes.
you, and it's all naturally and within your body and like your heart and your brain.
yes.
The interconnectivity, and so to kind of feel that, you almost feel like this alive,
Yes.
feeling, and
Yeah, you could see it in your eyes where they get almost glossy, like they're
like they're
pumping
sparkling.
out of yes,
Yeah, I literally
they're like pumping out of your head, right? It's
Yeah.
like your brain's on fire.
we have a guy that was studying for the bar, and he said he got mental clarity and had better recall, like when he got NAD treatments. And who knows if it's placebo effect or
Right.
whatever. And if it is, fine. But if it has an effect and you like that, then do it. So, but he said, and so at one time he was getting it, and I was like, he literally looked like his eyes were like sparkling. I
Yeah.
was like, whoa, this is crazy.
So I wonder with the mental recall, because when you work out and study or learn at the same time, it's challenging, but you can recall more. And I wonder if it has to do with that blood volume.
I bet. There's so many. This is such kind of the new frontier of intravenous therapy and benefits. I mean, there are people that are taking psilocybin, which is like the key active
Mushrooms.
ingredient in mushrooms, and they're doing it in low doses to rewire the brain for depression. People are using NAD plus treatments for curing depression and addiction. So I think there's a whole lot of human clinical studies that need to be done as it relates to IV therapy, and I can't wait to see what those may bring. We've even reached out to the founders of Whoop to see if there might be a collaborative opportunity to see with their testing and
It's a test.
monitoring data, how does IV nutrition therapy play a role, and
cool.
what health benefits and longevity benefits could be out there that we haven't actually studied and spent the money to get the human clinicals and the double-blind placebo-controlled tests and all that. So
You have to think though, the brain takes such a tremendous amount of energy, right? We don't think about it because you think about sports,
Yes.
sending energy, but when you're learning or when you're in a brain, your brain is actually absorbing so much energy.
Oh, yeah.
And NAD is a molecule that helps basically carry that energy forward. I mean, without getting into all the scientific. So it feels like to me that a major supplement for the brain is to get that flood of NAD and be able to carry energy into the brain. Not to mention the little powerhouses in your cells and mitochondria. They use all that for oxidation of carbohydrates and all that. So you're flooding your body with the ability to utilize energy to
More efficiently.
Catabolize carbohydrates, but then to also use it more efficiently.
Yeah.
For sure. So
hardest part right there.
Tearing it off.
Yeah.
The only other thing that I would like to ask you and get your answer on camera before we shut it off would be, I guess it's kind of a dual part kind of thing. It would be parents that have kids that want to play football.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And then beyond that, kids / college age / young and who are playing contact sports.
Yes.
I feel like just through the conversation you guys had that your answer would be not to not let them play football if that's what they want to do. There's just too many good intrinsic traits that you gain from an experience like playing a team sport like that. So what would your suggestions be for people to start doing immediately at 13, at 15, at 17? You talked a little bit about mindset and that playing a enormous role in it. But what are some tactics like that immediately at 12 years old when they put the pads on for the first time?
If you had to do it all over again,
Right.
what would you recommend to somebody to begin doing?
Yeah.
And there's so much.
From a physical standpoint, a couple of things that I would do that have been recommended to me through doctors that I've had on, brain doctors that I've had on the podcast, is one, glutathione is a really important supplement before and after brain injury.
Oh, do you want some of that, by the way?
I have some at the house.
You want an intravenous shot, though?
Sure.
Do you want to do a glutathione push room?
Yeah.
Okay.
And don't have to. I have some at the house still.
It's different, though.
It is. It is
IV
different.
is different.
Yeah, so glutathione and creatine are both really good for neurocognitive rehabilitation and to put kind of a brain reserve, is what they would call it, on. And hydration is huge. Eating healthy meals is a really big one. I think it's a hard one because you don't necessarily know who's going to be linemen and who aren't going to be linemen. It kind of happens when puberty takes hold and everything. I'm just more, I guess, passionate about linemen than I am about other positions. But starting to put on muscle early. And I say that because I don't think you want to put on 50 pounds a year. I think you want to start, and the sooner you start putting on muscle, the more healthily you can do that. Where in reality, we can put on 10 pounds of clean muscle a year when you're a beginner, 10 to 15 tops when you're a beginning weightlifter. After that, it whittles down to 10 to 5, and by the end, you're maxing out your human potential when it comes to the ability to put on more muscle. And so to be able to maintain a lean body mass and put on muscle, I would say you want to start fairly early with some type of resistance training.
To the extent that your doctor doesn't think you're going to jeopardize affecting your growth plates.
You won't.
You won't.
You
So
won't.
8th grade. 6th grade.
8th grade's fine.
The reality there too is, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you're also able to control things like bone density, and
Yes.
through continuous active workouts,
Yes.
is your bones will get denser over time, and
Yes.
therefore as you get more,
Yeah, that's the
go through
importance.
puberty,
Yeah.
get older, you can carry more muscle just because your bones are strong.
Yeah, that's the importance of resistance training, is for the bone density, for the ligament and tendon thickening. Those are really important factors. But I'm not talking about for a young kid like getting crazy in the weight room and doing ridiculous things, CrossFit type workouts where you're doing Olympic lifts and you're throwing weight over your head. I think there's a lot that kids can be doing at an early age. I have mine doing band resistance training at 6 years old. And it doesn't last long. It's like we were in there for 10 minutes and it's super funny watching them feel the resistance. I had one, he woke up this morning at 6:30. Hudson came down into the weight room and I was doing some band work. That's all I do now, do is band resistance training, and I ride an assault air bike, and that's my whole physical regimen. I go to the pool a couple times a week to kind of get long and allow some space in the joints and to burn some extra calories, and I walk. So that's my real protocol. And
Very
then,
sustainable.
yes, like I want to be doing something now that I could do when I'm 75. So he comes down and I was like, well, you're up awfully early. What happened? And he's like, oh, nothing, I'm just up. And I was like, you want to get some work in? And he's like, yeah, sure. And so I just kind of hold the bands, and I put him through like 2 sets of everything of 10, and then it lasted maybe 7-8 minutes. And then by the end of the last set, the second set of bicep curls that I had him on I've got this thing called an X3 bar, and it's got a band, and I'm like standing on the resistance thing for him, and he's like, and you could almost hear him start to whimper because they don't understand. Weightlifting is very frustrating when you're first doing it.
Yeah.
And so both of them do it, and when at the end of the line, they almost start crying, and they get mad at me, and I'm like, okay, we're done. That's just how I know we're done. I'm like, good job, we're done.
Yeah.
And just put it down. But it's like, it's a way for us to hang out together, but to also learn how to train safely and effectively. And
Talk about Hardwick life and the other daily regimens that you
Yeah.
think are important for longevity, and what is your daily regimen consist of?
yeah, okay, so my daily regimen, I'm up at about 5:30, having coffee with my wife in the kitchen for about 30
She's
minutes.
up with you.
She's up. She loves being up early, having her own time and space away from the kids, and kind of setting herself up. So we have about 30-45 minutes of coffee, and then I go down into the dungeon and do a light workout, which is about 20 minutes on the bike of some
6
type.
days a week, 7 days a week.
Yeah,
5.
6 to 7.
Okay.
Yeah, I try to do 6 just to keep the brain going. I get really grumpy if I don't work out.
Interesting.
Yes, so I'd rather take bite sizes every day than go 3 days hard. So it takes me 20 to 30 minutes. I started
So simple to do, right?
It's so simple.
So simple not to do.
And I do the same thing every other day. So I have a push day and I have a pull day, and I do the same thing every day. And it's
simple.
just moving it, just squeezing my muscles. It's not like I'm killing myself. I'm not getting sore. I don't have time for soreness.
I don't even care about being big.
I don't want I want to be strong enough. I want to maintain muscle mass, but I'm not like, if I have to fight somebody now, I'm going to jail. I'm done fighting, right?
Say you fought enough.
I fought enough. I don't have any interest in it any longer. So I do that. I do 20 minutes on the assault bike. I do a 15 to 20 minute protocol, tops on the resistance band, depending on how much rest I take. And then I come up, and that's after I've taken. So we have at Hardwick Life as our supplement company. I've got it's called a Pump Life. And then I got a Build Life, which is a grass-fed New Zealand whey protein. The Pump Life has caffeine in it. It's got L-theanine in it. It's got 3 grams of Creapure in it, which is a really nice creatine. And it's just a glutathione. It's got some amino acids in it, and it's just vitamins, like standard vitamins.
Like a stack of
A
vitamins.
stack,
Like a packet. You just take
that's
daily.
that's another one. That's what we call foundation. So that's
Okay.
vitamin D, fish oil, EPA, DHA.
Yeah.
It's got a multivitamin, got a probiotic in there. So it's kind of just cover your bases.
How does one find out about these supplements, or where do they go to buy them?
Hardwick.life.
Hardwick.life.
Hardwick.life. It's
Okay.
like hardwick.com.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Hopefully our social media guys can help do a swipe up.
Thank
or
you.
Maybe, not that you need any
No, I'd
promotion,
love one. Yeah.
but,
Thank you. We
yeah.
always, the more the better.
Right. The
Yeah.
more people that can hear your message and your
Yeah.
story.
The thing for me, it's like, I wrote an email this week and I'm like, hey, look, the business for me is kind of a game. It's fun. It keeps me engaged and keeps me learning something new and learning my own deficiencies. And I love that. And sure, I'd love to make a killing just because, right? It's a fun little game. But for me, the most important thing is, I guess, inspiring people and motivating people to get on their health journey. And I like to show, I do the same thing almost every day. Like I have 3 breakfasts that I choose from. I have 3 lunch that I choose from, and our dinner's the same thing every night.
And
Everything
looks so delicious.
It's a huge salad. It's roasted veggies and it's lean protein. It's like, it's not that hard to be healthy. It's not. And just find what works and stick with it. Like, don't reinvent the wheel every day because it's unsustainable. It's like, I kind of liken my health to like Steve Jobs' turtleneck. Like he knew what he was wearing every day when he woke up. There's no decisions to be made. So then he's got his willpower for everything else that happens in life. Like life can overwhelm you if you've got to make too many decisions. And if you're having to make a decision on everything that you eat and put into your body every day, then you got no bandwidth for dealing with relationships and dealing with business and
Yeah.
all that. So for me, like my decision's made. We just have healthy food laying around the house. I throw it into a bowl and that's it.
Yeah, so part of the problem is setting yourself up for success by having the right stuff around and
Having
having
the right
the wrong stuff not
It's
around.
like friends, right? Your
Yeah.
food's like friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, you keep good ones around you, you're gonna be healthy.
And-
Dr. Amen, by the way, we talked about Dr. Amen. His health recommendation. I was like, give me your number 1 tip for like a healthy life. And he goes, find the healthiest person you know and spend as much time with them as you possibly can. And you'll automatically become healthier.
I can attest to that. I've been hanging out with a couple of very healthy people.
It's
and,
true.
You know, so let's hang out, man.
Yes, I love it.
I am super inspired personally. We're so grateful to have you on today. Hopefully you feel great.
I feel awesome. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you for spending the time. I know it's busy and
It's all good.
This was fascinating, and I hope we can do it again sometime. And
Anytime.
We'll share the video content with you, and feel free to use it at your disposal. These guys will chop it up into sound bites
Thank you,
too,
guys.
so
Yeah.
that can
Thank
be
you. Thank you.
shareable. But I think the amount of knowledge dropped today was just astounding. So
Cool.
pretty cool. And the IVs are obviously on us.
Oh, thank you.
So
Yeah.
for your time and effort. So feel free to get James.
Do you have a card?
I do. I want to show you this.
Oh,
really
cool.
tool. So what this is